Well, that was a pretty awesome start to the football season, college football season. But now, for Clevelanders, the main event, the start of the Cleveland Browns regular season. We are certainly ready to watch some regular season football. But first, before we get to that main event, we're talking something that was a little bit disappointing and a little bit of a losing streak here, and that's the Cleveland Indians. A couple episodes ago in this podcast, we talked about how Cleveland was much greater than New York. At that very same time, we weren't playing so well against the Yankees and really poorly against the Mets for how good the Mets are. And then we've gone on to lose an entire season, getting swept by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Are they still called the Devil Rays, or are they just the Rays these days?
They're just the Rays.
They're just the Rays these days.
They had a throwback Devil Rays on one of the nights, so.
That's how good they are.
Yes.
Man, guys, like we were riding high with the Indians, and I don't know. Are we just are we doomed here? Or are the Browns just going to eclipse the Indians' results for the rest of the season here? Do the Indians still have a chance? Drew, let's kick it off with you. What do you think about the Indians, and as we move into this home stretch, what do you think the possibility is of making the playoffs?
Well, are the Browns going to eclipse the Indians? Yes, full stop. Just this is a football town, and for the first time in almost 30 years, we have a real live NFL football team. And so no matter what the Indians do, short of winning the World Series, they are going to be eclipsed by the return of the prodigal son. They're finally back, and they're going to eclipse them for sure. Carry on, young wayward son, all that. Kansas, lead us off, wonderful. But are the Indians doomed? No. The issue is, thanks to that sweep, the Indians are no longer leading the wild card. They're actually 2 games behind Tampa Bay in the win column. The wild card is sort of a mess right now in the American League. Tampa Bay has somehow played 5 more games than Oakland has. So it's sort of difficult to figure out where everybody stands. Long story short, go ahead and root against Tampa Bay and root against Oakland for the rest of the year, Tribe fans. We could use both those teams to lose and the Indians to win. The Indians do have 6 of their next 9 games against the Twins. So essentially the next 9 games determines who wins this division. And of those 6 games, the only way the Indians have a shot is if they win at least 4, and they probably need to get to 5 if you want to talk about the division. Assuming that they split, if it goes 4-2, there's a lot of work still to do. But they're certainly not doomed. They've got a couple games against the Tigers coming up. Ryan, you talked about the White Sox. They still have another game against them. They won the last game 11-2. The game tonight, I believe, was tied as of the airing of the podcast. So, they're certainly not doomed. But we no longer lead the wild card, and as fans of the Tribe, we need the A's and the Rays to lose going forward. So we have some teams to root against other than your typical Yankees, Red Sox type stuff. So.
Maybe this is a good thing to not have that huge cushy lead going into the playoffs. Eric, what do you think about our battle with the Twins and sort of momentum leading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any more confidence than last time we spoke about this. I mean, like we had said, they're going to have to win almost all of the games against the Twins to have a shot, and I don't see that happening. I think the one game they lost to the Tigers, they hit 6 or 7 home runs. I think it was 6 home runs, and they lost. I mean, they can just mash the ball all over the field. And, you look at now, in addition to Jose Ramirez, you see Tyler Naquin tear his ACL. Yep. I mean, Kipnis, he has arthritis in his wrist. I think he's going to come back in another day or 2. I don't anticipate him playing every day. Roberto Perez had a contusion, I think, on his leg yesterday. I mean, it's one guy after another. Guys have been stepping up, but you can only I'm gonna reference an old player, so I'm not gonna put down anybody on the team. You can
Here we
only
go.
win with
Here we
you can
go.
only win with
Here we
guys
go.
like Brandon Geyer so much that eventually your luck's gonna run out. So, I mean, you look at their schedule. Yeah, they get swept by the Mets. They get swept by the Rays. They sweep the Tigers. They're doing good against the White Sox. They're doing what they should be doing against the bad teams. And unfortunately, they're when playing good teams, they lose. So I think they can back into the wild card, by just a weaker schedule. I'm hoping, I haven't looked at the schedules. I'm hoping Oakland plays a lot of tough games out west. Rangers are hit and miss. And then Tampa, obviously, they have the Yankees and the Red Sox. Although the Red Sox have taken a step back, I mean, they're still a pretty good team. So, I'm hoping that those two, have a tough mid to late September, and the Tribe can seal up a wild card spot. At this point, I prefer it to be at home, but you just got to win the game and go from there. I'm not ready to give up, but my hopes of winning a World Series are diminished greatly. Not 0%, but my hope for getting into the playoffs is still there, though.
All right, so the weekdays might be for baseball, at least in September. We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
The weekends are turning into already this past weekend for football. College football kicked off this past weekend. We got to see a lot of fun games. Even on Friday night, I was watching Wake Forest and Utah State. What a game!
Nice.
It's just it's a different animal.
I was very surprised. I was watching a game of those two teams and was thoroughly entertained. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
Ohio State, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more habitual for all of us to watch those games. Awesome start for Ohio State and got us immediately texting each other back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields, a Heisman Trophy candidate here. Rest of the game, maybe not. Eric, what do you think about Heisman hopefuls and Justin Fields in his first performance?
Well, I think if he played the way he did in the first quarter, he'd be a Heisman hopeful. I mean, I'm hoping it was the team got too complacent and knew that they were better than Florida Atlantic and didn't really, give a full effort. He had 18 of 25 passing, 234 yards, 4 touchdowns, which isn't even that high of passing attempts. It's just, you saw the competition. That first touchdown he threw, there was nobody 10 yards around the receiver. So, he's doing what we should be doing. But you look at Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Fromm, Justin Herbert, even in a loss, and Jalen Hurts. Oklahoma looking to have 3 straight.
I got nobody to talk about now, Eric.
Hey, you gotta ask the question. You gotta go. Those are 5 guys right there. I think are better odds than him. I won't delve into each one, Drew. So I'll let you have that. But the other thing is, this is first full. I don't know if it's his first full start, but it's definitely his first start at Ohio State. So, those kind of guys, Kyler Murray, can come out of the woodwork and win the Heisman. But I think it's gonna be really tough for him, especially sitting out last year and having to transfer. So, he's a good quarterback. I really can't wait to see what he does against Penn State, Michigan State, some of the bigger players. But I'm not ready to give him the night at Manhattan in the first Saturday of December yet. Just yet.
Yeah, we're talking all quarterbacks. I don't know, Drew. Do you have? Eric named 13 quarterbacks. Do you have another position player that you can name?
I do.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I do. First of all, it is pumpkin beer season, so it's September. Congrats. We made it, everyone. I just wanted to say congratulations to all of our believers out there. We made it to September. We made it to football season. So I am going to talk about Jalen Hurts to start because that performance was ridiculous. He threw for 322 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and added 176 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So he is certainly your Heisman favorite after week 1. I don't think there's really any way you can debate that. But I do have two other positions, and the first, I actually think Trevor Lawrence is second on his own team right now if we're talking Heisman. I'm going to talk about Travis Etienne. He's the running back from Clemson. He had 12 carries. He touched the ball 12 times, 205 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, you extrapolate that, when you start touching the ball more as a running back, it is a more inefficient way of moving the football. You probably don't keep that type of average, but, if he can get 18 to 20 carries a game, I think he can almost average close to 200 yards. I mean, they're going to play some stiffer competition, sure, but that ACC isn't exactly loaded this year. You saw Florida State lose their first game, so I think he's certainly a candidate. Clemson's going to be ahead. They're going to be looking to run some clock. It just, nature of the beast. So I think he's a very strong candidate. I also like track star Jonathan Taylor. He touched the ball 16 times. And in that, he touched the ball 18 times. In that, he went for 135 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and added 50 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So he's certainly a candidate as well. I think he faces some tougher competition than Travis Etienne does. So I don't look for that type of level to persist. But if a running back can score 3 or 4 touchdowns a week, he's going to win. It just you look back at every other running back that has won, and you have to put the ball in the end zone, and you have to get your all-purpose yards, and he can do both with that speed. So I definitely think that those two guys are in the mix as well. But Jalen Hurts is still certainly my favorite because of the dual threat that he adds, and we didn't see a lot of that from Tua, and we only saw really one big run from Justin Fields.
Okay. Here's one for our Wisconsin friends. How about the new nickname of JT Touchdown? Little JTT spin-off there.
I know Eric Dodger loves that nickname.
Well, every time I hear Jonathan Taylor, that's the first thing I think of, but I don't say it. It makes you feel a lot more prouder.
That's just signs of growth right there, ladies and gentlemen. He's not saying it.
Yes. 36 years in the making.
All right, let's talk about the team that we're all wearing here tonight. That's the Cleveland Browns. Game against the Titans this Sunday. Going to be either, did we win? We didn't win the opener last season, and I'm sure Eric can tell us.
One opener, since the team has returned to the league. They are 1-19, 1-18 in season openers.
I think this is our chance. Drew,
I think this is it.
What do you think about this game against the Titans?
I think they finally put this monkey to bed. They actually haven't been harping on it as much as I thought they might. The team has plenty of other people to talk about. You haven't heard the stat mentioned much, at least I haven't, that the Cleveland Browns are 1, and I think it's 1-18 or 1-19 since returning to the league on opening day. It has to, right? It's almost impossible to be that incompetently bad for that long, to always start the year out under 500. So I think this is the year that they break through. I think they are more talented than Tennessee. I think Tennessee is a decent squad. I think Tennessee will be in the wild card picture up until the last couple weeks of the season. I think this is a team that absolutely can win 8 games, maybe 9, maybe even 9, and can sneak into that picture. I don't think they're a playoff team, but they certainly have some talent. But I think the Browns are going to be too much. They're missing Taylor Lewan, their left tackle. They have some issues even when he's there protecting the quarterback. So I think that Browns defensive line is going to prove to be way too much, and I think the offense will be good, but it will leave a little to be desired. I don't think they're going to come out and score 50 opening week. I think the Browns win this one 24-14.
Eric, what do you think? Does the Titans have enough stability at quarterback? Who are they even going to play? And it seems like a weakness on their team.
Absolutely. There was rumors, I might have mentioned this on an earlier podcast, but for those not listening to that one, you'll hear it this time. Yeah, there were rumors that Mariota wasn't potentially, the 100% the guy, and Ryan Tannehill might unseat him. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, Mariota started his career out pretty well, but he's just kind of been hovering around average or slightly above average, and that's not where you want to be. That's Andy Dalton right there. So, saying that, I expect a lower scoring game. Both defenses are pretty solid. Name a couple guys on their side, because we obviously know our defensive front and, the next two levels are pretty solid. You had that on display in the preseason. Yeah, Kevin Byard, Malcolm Butler, Wesley Woodyard, Cameron Wake, a couple guys that are a little more veteran, but they know what they're doing and they should be good leaders. They're not going to be like a shutout type of defense, but they can make plays. And our offense not actually being on the field or in preseason games, I don't think that's going to be a big detriment, but it might take a couple of series for them to be in sync. So I expect it to be like around a field goal game with about 4 or 5 minutes left, and then somebody, either Chubb or Mayfield, Landry, to put the Browns up 10. I have a very similar score to Drew. Let's just add 3 points for both teams, 27-17. And, I also I was at that game in 2004. We beat the Ravens. It was one of the best days ever. And I had that type of feeling again. And that's saying something for 20 years of ineptitude. But I hope to have that happiness once again after opening day. I'm not going to be there, but still have the happiness.
It's gonna be a good one, and I think there was a couple surprises that we'll see out there on the field as far as starters on the Browns roster. Browns just released their depth chart today to the media, and a couple surprising things. Eric, what did you see that surprised you? We were texting over the weekend. Kicker was a surprise. What else
Punter.
surprised you?
Punter. Yeah, the Jamie Gillian at punter. As I had said, he's going to make a lot less money. I don't, the Browns aren't up against the cap, but he doesn't have the experience. He's younger, but he's green. But is he worth the money? We'll see.
But he's the hammer.
And he's also
the
the
Scottish hammer, right?
Scottish
well, not
hammer.
to be confused with Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Anyways,
if he can be the only hammer in Cleveland sports, that sounds pretty good.
Yes. Outside of Austin Carr, throw the hammer down.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, keeping that.
That's number one.
Yeah, the team doesn't have the Akron hammer anymore, so why not get the Scottish hammer?
So yeah, I mean, I think he's going to do a good job. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him. I think most people would, but he's fought for everything he's had in his football/rugby life. So I think he can stick around for a while, and I like that. Other two position groups, I just kind of see what kind of stood out was the trades, and that was offensive line and wide receiver. Wyatt Teller and Justin McCray are now the backup at guard. They're both were traded from Buffalo and Green Bay a few days ago, and they're going to be potentially shoveled in depending on how good Eric Kush plays. I didn't expect all the backup linemen to stay there, but the fact they made two trades, a little surprising. If they're the right guys, great. Good job, Dorsey. And same thing goes with receiver. We had how many? 6 or 7 guys, it seems like, and they all got lopped off. And I was kind of surprised with Ratley sticking around. He hasn't shown a whole lot. I know he's big, but again, hasn't shown a whole lot. And Taywan Taylor can give us the hints for week 1 against his former team in the Titans. And Kadrell Hodge, another guy. Both don't have a tremendous amount of stats, but I guess neither did Braxton Miller or any of the other guys we released. So, again, these are back end of the rosters finally, though. It's not like, this guy we just picked up, he's going to start for us this week. So I'm surprised, but not at like a extreme amount than I had been in years past.
Yeah, I think we've got ultimate trust in Dorsey these days. We were talking about the release of Deshaun Kaiser going to the Raiders, being cut by the Packers there, and one of the maybe all-time trades for the Browns there to get Demarius Randall. What a incredible trade looking back on what Kaiser's gone through in his career. Drew, what did you see? Anything else stand out as far as depth chart and how the Browns are aligning for this first game?
Yeah, you mentioned ultimate trust in John Dorsey. You might call him the ultimate warrior in terms of general management. But no, you might.
Waving that waiver wire.
There you go.
Eric already brought up most of that. Was pretty good. The waiver wire.
I'll give you that one.
I want to make sure everybody heard that. The waiver wire. I'll move on finally from it.
Yeah, brother.
So Eric mentioned some of the trades. One of the ones that I saw was at tight end, bringing in Ricky Seals-Jones. The team is keeping 4 tight ends, and not one of which is Seth DeValve, who has shown an ability to make some plays in the passing game, which is what you want out of tight ends these days. But he was cut, and instead we have Demetrius Harris as the primary backup. Pharaoh Brown, Ricky Seals-Jones. Those are the guys that sort of round out this position. So we have to hope that David Njoku stays healthy, because there's not much of a receiving threat beyond that. Now, you could argue that what we saw from Freddie Kitchens was not a whole lot of tight ends in that offense, but if you look at Tampa Bay, O.J. Howard had pretty good, and Cameron Brate, they had pretty good seasons with Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. So there's some concern, if you don't have Njoku for any week, that you lose, what could be a decent weapon there. So I was a little surprised with that. I was a little surprised to see Eric Murray over Sheldrick Redwine. That's a fairly high draft pick that's pretty well buried on the depth chart. You'll only see, Redwine on special teams duties for most of this year, it looks like, unless things change there. And then, Eric already mentioned some of the wide receiver stuff. I was pretty surprised to see, Hodge make the team. I was surprised to see Damian Ratley make the team. I actually like the trade for Taywan Taylor. I think he's a pretty good player and brings that sort of dimension of speed and sort of shiftiness to the offense that you lose with Callaway being out. Callaway can't play the first 4 weeks, and so you could use that speedster to come in. You have Odell Beckham Jr., so you don't really need it. But it's always good to have somebody run a go route up the other sideline or a post to take some of the safety, deep. I was surprised with that. I thought Jalen Strong earned a spot over Hodge and Ratley. I thought Jalen Strong had a pretty good rapport with Baker Mayfield, knows how to run routes, knows how to get open, could be a good replacement if Jarvis were to, miss a couple games. I think he's, a very poor man's Jarvis Landry type of a player. If you lose Jarvis Landry for any time in the season, I think we'll miss somebody like Strong, who has that craftiness, that veteran presence and those good hands to be able to get open in the underneath stuff. So I was pretty surprised about that, but I'm not disappointed. This isn't cut Taylor Gabriel so we can keep who was Saunier's guy for those years.
I don't know.
I don't even remember him. One of Sashi Brown's 15 wide receivers from the 2016 draft. This isn't, cut Andrew Hawkins, cut, Terrell Pryor for these bums that we had to have in the 5th and 6th and 7th round. So, all in all, I'm pretty pleased with what I see. And I really like the trade for Wyatt Teller. I think he starts at right guard in week 2.
All right, let's kick it into our final segment here. And we're once again going to do another fan question. This fan question coming from Brandon Bayless, another friend of the show. He's fairly closely connected or related to this podcast. We've been relying on some family members here for these fan questions. But if you have a question, just reply us or send us a DM on Twitter, or just get a hold of us and we'll let you know how you get in touch with the show. This one's going to be a video message that I'm going to queue up here. And if you want to have your question on the show, just send us a video message and we'll play it on an upcoming episode of the podcast. So let's go with our question here from Brandon Bayless.
Hey, gentlemen. Brandon here, Chagrin Falls, 5'6", 185, bulky. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Just finished softball, 0-2, classic Cleveland for you. All right, what I have for you is a would you rather. Would you rather the Cleveland Indians make the World Series, no guarantee on the outcome, and the Browns go 4-12, or Cleveland Indians do not make the playoffs, the Browns go 11-5, and no guarantee they make the playoffs? Can't wait to hear.
All right, so that's the. I think Brandon is using Eric's old camera in his car there. And
Excellent.
That's all right. Hey, that's wonderful. Keep them coming, everybody. You use the old cameras. We don't care. We're not elitists here.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see if we can get the. If you listened to the full version of the podcast last week, we might have muffed the question a little bit.
Terribly.
Let's see if we get Brandon's question right here. So we've got a guaranteed Indians in the playoffs, or I mean in the World Series.
World Series, yeah.
So I'm not trying to mess this up already. No guarantee of a World Series win. Option 2 is if the Indians don't make the playoffs.
It's the playoffs.
And the Browns go 11-5. No guarantees of the playoff, but that record could lead them into the playoffs. So those two options, Indians, World Series, Browns, very strong record. All right, let's go to Drew this time, since this isn't your family member. And which one would you prefer?
Yeah, so the kicker for me was Brandon said that the Browns go 4-12, and that would be that would just be devastating to everything that has led up to this moment. You know, and I use the colloquial we here have talked a lot of smack. This team has finally found its swagger. This team is finally back, and if they go 4-12. That might finally be it for these diehard fans. So there is no situation where I can get on board with the Cleveland Browns going 4-12. That would be absolutely devastating for me as a fan, for just about every fan that has waited, really since 1994 for this moment. I don't think the team has had really a professional team outside of a couple flashes in the pans. 2002 and 2007. I don't even count that, honestly. I think this is finally the return of football in Cleveland, and if they go 4-12, it would be devastating. So I will take the Cleveland Browns going 11-5. I think that almost guarantees you at least a wild card, and I think if they're 11-5, that means that they've beaten up pretty well on the Steelers and Ravens as well. There's only so many games you can lose, so I think that gets them into the playoffs, and I'd love to watch this team in the playoffs.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to, I don't know if this is one of the shows where we have to argue, but it's hard to argue not seeing the Browns go 11-5. They haven't done it since 1994, as Drew mentioned. 11-5 will likely get you in the playoffs. There's only been a handful or probably less instances of that occurring. I don't even care if we even have a home game. I prefer a home game, but just get me to the playoffs. And then you look on the other side of the coin, you got Indians. They broken your hearts 3 times in the last 20 years, going to the World Series 3 times, twice losing in Game 7 extra innings. Only team ever to do that. I mean, it'd be a big bummer if they didn't make the playoffs, but I wasn't expecting them to win the World Series anyway this year, so I wouldn't be as devastated. Yes, the Browns going 4-12 would be pretty rough, but well, so don't even worry about that side, I guess. And 11-5. I mean, I'm just so amped up, so excited. I just want it to happen, and hopefully they make it come true.
Eric, what if they could guarantee a World Series?
World Series win?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably take that.
The Browns 4-12. You take it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that if you said the Browns 11-5 and the Indians World Series guaranteed, then I might have a debate. But Yeah, if you say a better, Browns terrible season, but I got to see that. Anytime you get a championship, you got to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a clean sweep for me. World Series victory or bust for the Indians.
Yeah.
Just think of the beauty of the Browns. 11 Sundays this fall and winter. 11 Sundays, and the Browns win 11 Sundays.
That's 3 seasons worth of victory.
Yes.
That would just
Nice.
be joyous to watch the Browns win that many games, even if it just led to a wild card and an exit. But we know that's not going to happen. It's going to lead to something much grander with this selection of stars, or at least we hope. But 11 wins, that would be glorious, Drew. All right, thank you guys. We are going to have much to talk about this next week. We're going to be breaking down Browns game 1. We'll be talking some more Tribe. We'll see if Dylan Windler is doing anything as the no, probably not yet. But we'll be talking Browns, maybe some Bucks, and thank you guys, and let's have a good weekend.
Go Dylan
Sounds
Windler.
good. Go Browns, go Bucks.
Go Windlers.